Well, I was going to do
I'm a
every
little. Start again.
everyone was doing. Start again.
Okay.
I know that this is the time of a roast, and yet the only thing that I could think of doing was sharing with everyone three stories with my father that I think indicates the kind of person he is and the wonderful papa he has always been. My father worked in my life with my dad two jobs. He would work all day, he'd come home, he'd have a fleeting dinner, and then he would go out to see his patients that evening for social work. And when he got home, he was exhausted, and all he wanted to do was read the paper and just have some quiet time. But we had a ping pong table in the basement, and Dad and I were great competitors. And I would sit, and when he'd come home, and I'd say, "Okay, Dad, I want to play ping pong." And he'd say, "Sure, Liz, but just give me a little bit of time to read the paper." So I'd sit at his feet while he opened the paper, and after he turned the page, I'd ask him if he was done yet. And of course he wasn't. And he said, "Just give me a little more time." And I just sat at his feet, and he would turn the page, and I asked him if he was done yet. And he shut the paper up, and he went downstairs, and we would have a grand competition. We'd laugh, we'd hoot and holler, and Mom would sit on the basement stairs because there was so much commotion and cheer on the event. But he always made it a priority to be with me and to play. The other story is a tribute to my father, in that he had, rules of things that we should not do. And when I would get home from school, I would like to take one of the balls and bounce them off of the garage steps. Well, the garage steps were right in front of the basement windows. And Dad told me not to bounce the stairs off those steps out of fear that it would break the windows. Now, I, of course, thought that was ridiculous. And I would come home and, Dad wasn't there, and I'd get my ball and I'd go out and I'd bounce it off of the garage steps, and lo and behold, it crashes and breaks the downstairs basement window. And of course I was sobbing. I ran into Mom and said, "Dad's going to be so mad at me. Look what I've done. He told me not to, and yet I went out and did it against what his wishes were." And Mom says, "It'll be okay. Just talk to Dad when he gets home." And when Dad pulled into the driveway, I was crying, and he got out of the car, and I sat down with him on the steps leading up to the kitchen, and I told him what I had done. And he just hugged me and held me as I cried and said, "That's okay, Liz. I just want you to know that that was why I told you not to bounce the ball, because I didn't want anything to happen to you." And all he did was hug me and love me. And that's what my father always did. And the last story was in high school, although there are many more that I could share. And it was at a time when every other day the cars would have their day to go for gas because there was the gas crunch. So on the license plate, if you had an odd number, you'd go on Mondays, and the even numbers would go on Tuesdays. And Dad was very cautious about, where we went to conserve gas. So if Mom forgot something, of course, there was a little bit of a tat at home because, he didn't want to waste the gas. But sometimes I'd come home after rough days at high school, and what would make me the most calm and peaceful was going for a drive in the car. And it didn't matter with Dad. He would just take me in the car, and we would drive through all the back roads of White Plains, and we wouldn't talk really except comment on the different homes and how beautiful they looked, or different things that we saw that we may not have seen the last time. And I said, And I guess that's the gift of my father, because as much as he is careful with money, money doesn't matter at all when it comes to the people he loves. And his generosity and his guidance and his love has been the strength behind me for all of my days. So I thank you, my Father, for all that you've done, for all that you've given me. And I celebrate these 91 years, and grateful for the 54 that I've had with you. I love you, my Papa.
You